So, well, the name of the chapter is before you. It is Keynesian model of income determination. In the previous chapter, we have studied about classical system. And in this chapter, we shall be studying about aggregate demand, equilibrium output, consumption function, saving functions, multiplier in 2-3 sectors of the economy. So today I am going to cover 50% of this chapter. I am starting with 11.2 subsection constant aggregate demand and equilibrium output. Well, student, the diagram is before you. It is diagram number 11.1, and in this diagram we are assuming that aggregate demand is what horizontal, that means it is constant. So its graph is parallel to x-axis. Mathematically, the equation for aggregate demand can be written as C plus I plus G plus Nx. C indicates consumption demand or consumption expenditure. I stand for investment demand or investment expenditure. G stand for government demand or government expenditure. Nx stand for net exports. Now we are assuming that investment, government expenditure, and net exports are exogenous, fixed, or autonomous. That is why when we plot aggregate demand curve, it is going to be parallel to x-axis. As far as aggregate demand is concerned, it is making a 45-degree line with the x-axis. The point where aggregate demand and aggregate supply curve intersect each other will give us the equilibrium. Since at all equilibrium points, aggregate demand is equal to aggregate supply or aggregate demand is equal to Y. So on 45-degree line, you will find AD is equal to Y. So please remember this 45-degree line is not aggregate demand as such, but we are writing here AD is equal to Y because at the point where aggregate demand is equal to aggregate supply or output, we have the equilibrium. So actually this 45-degree line is showing only aggregate supply or national income. Equilibrium output is attained at the point where the quantity of output produced is equal to the quantity demanded. As far as quantity of output is concerned, I've already told you that it is indicated by 45-degree line, which is having equal vertical distance for both x and y axis. E is the point of equilibrium. Only at the point of equilibrium E, aggregate demand is equal to aggregate supply, and this is also called as equilibrium level of output, where firms are selling as much as they produce, or we can say people are buying the same amount they want to purchase. So there is no tendency for level of output to change. So equilibrium means a state of balance or state of unchanged. That means a position from where there is no tendency for movement or deviation. But in case you consider any point which is to the left of equilibrium point, we will find that there is inequality between aggregate demand and aggregate supply, and it is here that IU is less than 0. IU indicates unplanned inventories. That means any level of output which is below or before equilibrium point, there is more demand and there is less production. So when there is more demand and there is less production, so we can say the inventories are running down. That is why we say unplanned inventories is less than zero or it is negative. But for any point which is to the right of equilibrium point E, unplanned inventories are positive, or you can say there is unnecessary accumulation of inventories. Or we can say when we consider any level of output which is more than equilibrium level of output, there is more production, more output, or you can say inventories are accumulated. And so in both of these situations, there will be a tendency for system to move back to the equilibrium point E, where aggregate demand is equal to aggregate output. Now this equation, which is being satisfied at the equilibrium point E, is something about which we have already studied in chapter 2 on national income accounting that we have discussed in the class. AD is equal to C plus I plus G plus NX. So at this point, investment and consumption in the national income accounts are amounts of the goods which are actually bought. So we can say investment measured in the national income accounts include unintended inventory changes. And these unintended or undesired inventory changes occur when firms find themselves selling more or less goods than they had planned to sell. Well, student, I should tell you that planned demand may be different from actual supply. Or we can say there is a difference between actual aggregate demand concept measured in the accounting context and it is explained in the economic concept. In the economic concept, we make a distinction between desired or intended aggregate demand on one hand and actual or realized aggregate demand on the other hand. Students, you must remember that only at E point, actual aggregate demand is equal to aggregate output. But at any other level of output, there is disequilibrium, or we can say planned aggregate output may not be same as actual level of output. And the same is happening, which we have already discussed through the first figure that I discussed. For example, if you come back to the same figure, figure number 11.1, you will find that before E point, planned aggregate demand is not equal to actual output level. And there is a difference between the two, which is given by unplanned inventories. So that means we are having more demand, but there is less production. So here we must increase the output so that we may reach at the point E where aggregate demand is equal to actual aggregate output. Similarly, when we go beyond equilibrium point E, we find that unplanned inventories are positive, and that indicates output is more, but demand is less, and there is unplanned inventory accumulation. So that means our plannings may not be same as the actual that we finally reach. That means our actual demand is only equal to actual output, but the planned demand may be less or it may be more than the actual output level. For example, in this equilibrium point E, if you consider any point to the right of E, we find that actual output is more and planned demand is less. Reverse is the situation if you consider any point which is to the left of equilibrium point E. Now we come back to page number 202, equation number 11.3, where we say unplanned inventories are given by the difference between Y and AD. And this difference between Y and AD is positive for any output level which is to the right of equilibrium point. For example, you can see in figure 11.1, so Y minus aggregate demand is positive, and this is shown in the figure for any point which is to the right of E, and Y minus aggregate demand is negative. That means negative unplanned inventories when you consider any output level which is less than the equilibrium output level. Now, only at one point output is at its equilibrium level. This is given by equation 11.4, Y equal to AD or aggregate demand. There are some summary points which are discussed in the box which is before you. The first point is aggregate demand determines the equilibrium output level, and whenever there is equilibrium, unintended or unplanned changes in the inventories are zero. So at equilibrium point, aggregate demand is equal to actual output level. So unplanned inventories will be zero. So there will not be any unintended changes in the inventories. So here consumers, government and foreign purchaser are all purchasing the amount they actually want to purchase. And the third point is adjustment process for output based on unintended inventory changes will actually move output to its equilibrium level. So it means in case the economy is not at equilibrium point E, then the adjustment process will start and unintended inventory changes will take place and the output will come back to the equilibrium level, and that is E point. Now we come to the next subheading, consumption function and the aggregate demand. We all know that aggregate demand comprises of consumption, investment, government and foreign sector demand. So we are starting with a consumption function that shows the relationship between the consumption and income, and this relationship is explained through equation number 11.5, where C is given to be equal to C bar plus C bar. C bar is autonomous consumption. That means consumption when income level is zero. That means even when people do not earn anything, they still consume. That consumption is called as autonomous consumption. And beyond this level, people will start consuming more and more depending upon the marginal propensity to consume. That means the difference between the consumption and the difference between the income. So marginal propensity to consume, which is symbolically expressed by small c in this equation, this means delta C divided by delta Y. That means change in consumption divided by change in income. That means the ratio of change in consumption to the change in income. And in case MPC is greater, major proportion of the increased income will be consumed by the people. C bar is always more than 0. That means people consume even then they do not earn. Most of the students do not earn, but there is positive consumption. That is known as autonomous consumption. But marginal propensity to consume is always lying between 0 and 1. 0 value of MPC implies that means people are not consuming at all, even when there is addition of the income. And MPC equal to 1 implies whatever income that is added, it is 100% going to the consumption. Now let us study about saving function. Saving is that proportion of income which is not spent on the consumption, and it is equal to Y minus C. This is given in equation number 11.6. Now we have second diagram in this chapter given by figure number 11.2. Here we have relaxed the assumption. In figure number 11.1, we assume that aggregate demand is constant, but in real life, aggregate demand comprising of consumption, investment, government expenditure, and foreign purchases is not constant. It is not exogenous completely. It is not fixed completely. So in this diagram, we are assuming that consumption function starts from positive y-axis. In this diagram, it is starting from C bar. This intercept on the y-axis indicates autonomous consumption. That is the level of consumption when the income level is 0. After this point, the consumption function starts rising at a constant rate given by MPC or marginal propensity to consume, indicated by symbol small c. So consumption function has been shown in this diagram to be linear, and it is upward sloping given by the equation C is equal to C bar plus Cy. But aggregate demand comprises of C, I, G, and net exports. So it is also having the same shape as that of consumption function in this case, because here we are assuming that investment, government expenditure, and net foreign purchases are exogenous or they are fixed. So when this fixed amount is added to the consumption graph, we will be getting aggregate demand, which is in this case is given by A bar plus small c into Y. A bar is the total autonomous expenditure. C bar is autonomous consumption. A bar is total autonomous or fixed expenditure. So unlike the previous diagram shown by figure number 11.1, here aggregate demand is not assumed to be constant. So it is not parallel to x-axis, rather it is linear and upward sloping. Here saving function is given by y minus c, which is equal to y minus c bar minus cy, which is equal to minus c bar plus 1 minus c into y. This is given by equation number 11.7, which is before your screen. 1 minus c is called as marginal propensity to save, and it is indicated by small s. We all know that whatever is not consumed will be saved, and sum of marginal propensity to consume and marginal propensity to save is always equal to 1. So marginal propensity to save, or MPS, or small s, is equal to 1 minus c, which is always positive. So that means both c and s lie between 0 and 1. If MPC is 0.9, that means 90% of the additional income is consumed, that would indicate marginal propensity to save is 10%. That means 10% of the additional income received by the people is saved. In the previous figure, that is 11.2, the equilibrium takes place where aggregate demand and output both intersect each other, and the corresponding output level is given by Y star. Corresponding aggregate demand is given by AD star in the figure. Below the equilibrium point, unplanned inventories will be negative, which is incorrectly shown as positive in this case, and unplanned inventories will be positive when we consider any equilibrium point. To the right, there will be unnecessary accumulation of inventories, so output will be more than the demand. The gap between aggregate demand curve and consumption function is called as investment, and this investment amount is assumed to be autonomous. In this diagram, we have assumed that there is no government expenditure and there is no foreign purchases. We will relax these assumptions in the subsequent subtopics. So next subtopic is planned investment and aggregate demand. Here aggregate demand is AD, which is equal to C plus I, where C is equal to C bar plus CY and I is equal to I bar. So when you add C bar and I bar, the total is shown by symbol A bar, that is autonomous investment and autonomous consumption taken together, and we can call it autonomous demand or autonomous expenditure. And this expenditure is same irrespective of the level of income. The remaining part of the aggregate demand is a function of income. Now students, you can now come to equation number 11.9, which again shows the equilibrium point where aggregate output and aggregate demand are same or equal. That is Y is equal to AD. And in equation form, this can also be written as Y is equal to A bar plus CY. A bar is autonomous demand, CY is induced demand. The total is aggregate demand. When we rearrange the term, we get Y within bracket 1 minus C is equal to A bar. So Y will be equal to 1 upon 1 minus C into A bar. Now this particular equation has special significance in the sense it shows the equilibrium level of income is indicated by A bar divided by 1 minus marginal propensity to consume, which is same as A bar divided by marginal propensity to save. This can further be expanded to get the result that delta Y is equal to 1 minus C reciprocal multiplied by delta A bar. This particular equation will be used in the next subsection on multiplier. So after discussing equation number 11.11, which is before your screen, I will give you some conclusion which are mentioned in this PDF file also. The position of aggregate demand schedule is known by the slope, which is C, and intercept A, that is autonomous spending. So in case you want to know about aggregate demand curve, you can know its position through intercept A from where the curve starts, and its slope is indicated by MPC, marginal propensity to consume. The second point is, given the intercept, steeper aggregate demand function will imply higher level of equilibrium income. So that means if I take back you to figure number 11.3, you will find that this aggregate demand curve is starting from A bar, and the rate at which aggregate demand is rising, it is given by marginal propensity to consume. This is how you can know the position of aggregate demand curve. And what I have discussed, that if the intercept A bar is higher, the equilibrium level of national income will also be higher. You can easily understand from this diagram. If you take A bars slightly at a higher level, you will find new equilibrium point at a higher level. That means at higher level of output. Second point, for any given level of A bar, the equilibrium level of output is going to be greater when MPC is greater. You know that when MPC is higher, the aggregate demand curve will become more steeper. I think, student, you remember steeper demand curve means there is high slope, and flatter demand curve means there is less slope. So that means when MPC is higher, that means slope is higher, and if slope is higher, that means equilibrium output level will be attained at higher level of output level. This is something you can easily try by making further diagrams. And next point, last point, for a given MPC, higher level of autonomous spending, that means more intercept, that will imply high equilibrium level of income. That means when A bar is more, definitely aggregate demand curve will be at a higher level. So we will have to make a parallel upward shift in the aggregate demand curve. So we will definitely get equilibrium point to the right. That means higher income or output level. Now we have equation number 11.12 that shows from the equilibrium condition, if you deduct C from both the sides, Y minus C will become S, because income which is not consumed will be saving. And from right hand side, if you deduct C, then you will get investment, because aggregate demand in the two sector economy comprises of consumption and investment demand. So whenever we are having equilibrium in the two sector economy, saving will be equal to investment. Now we come to the second subheading in this chapter. This is multiplier. Multiplier is a very useful topic. It simply shows the multiple by which total income rises as a result of a permanent increase in planned investment expenditure. In simple words, I will say, whenever we increase the investment expenditure, there will be rise in the income level, but the rise in income level will be much more than the rise in investment expenditure, and the multiple by which income rises for a given change in planned investment expenditure will be called as investment multiplier. And this multiplier is equal to the ratio of aggregate income change and change in investment. In mathematical terms, you can say multiplier is change in Y divided by change in investment. Paradox of thrift is a topic which is only required for conceptual understanding. Students, whenever you find star in any topic or subtopic in the chapter, you can know from the footnote that this particular section is required only for conceptual understanding. But here I would simply say thrift means saving, paradox means something unusual, and something unusual about saving is people generally used to believe that if there is more saving, it is going to create more income or it is going to be in the interest of the people. But Keynes said if everybody starts saving, there will be a tremendous loss of consumption expenditure. So further creation of consumption will be stopped by having more saving. So high level of savings will not be a blessing for the economy. Rather, it is adversely affecting the working of the economy, because with more saving, there will be less consumption. With less consumption, there will be less expenditure. With less expenditure, there will be less income creation. And so less people will be getting jobs. So everything will go down. So paradox of thrift means we should not think of increasing the saving. Rather, we should think of decreasing the saving or increasing the consumption expenditure. And this is something which will be more clear from the multiplier process, which I discussed now. Multiplier process has been explained in table number 11.1 on page number 209 of chapter number 10, Keynesian model of income determination. In this table, you will find there are numerous rounds given in the first column. In the second column, you will find increase in demand. And this increase in demand, to start with, it is delta A bar. We are assuming that initially some investment expenditure is increased or changed. And we all know that expenditure by one person is a source of income for the other person. So whenever there is increase in demand by delta A bar, there will also be increase in production by equal amount, because supply creates the demand. So that means whatever is demanded, there is going to be equal production. And so there will be equal increase in income, because I have just told you that expenditure by one person is a source of income for the other. So in the first round, the increase in income is delta A bar. In the next round, the increase in demand will be somewhat lesser, depending upon the value of MPC. So if MPC is given by symbol C, so if you are receiving income of delta A bar, you will not spend the entire amount, but your expenditure will be limited to your needs, and your needs are expressed through marginal propensity to consume. That means what proportion of additional income you are consuming. So with total increase in income of delta A bar in the first round, there will be increase in demand by C into delta A bar in the second round. For example, suppose somebody spends 1000 rupees, and the person who receives this income, he will not spend the entire amount. He will keep some amount as saving, say 10%. So remaining amount 90% will be spent. And this 90% is nothing but it is MPC. So in the next round, the expenditure or increase in demand will be given by C into delta A bar. And so increase in production in the second round will be C into delta A bar. And the total increase in income in the two rounds taken together will be equal to delta A bar plus C into delta A bar. That means whatever production or whatever expenditure that has taken place in the two rounds. So if you add them together, you will get 1 plus C within bracket multiplied by delta A bar. Now we proceed further to the third round. In the third round, whatever income that was spent in the second round, that will become a basis for expenditure in the third round. So we will multiply this received income C into delta A bar by C, that is MPC, to know what income is actually spent by the people in the third round, which is equal to C square into delta A bar. And equal amount of production takes place in the third round, that is C square into delta A bar. So the total increase in income in the 3 rounds together will be the sum of increase in production or sum of the expenditure in the 3 rounds together. It is equal to 1 plus C square within bracket into delta A bar. So this way we find that in every round expenditure is being incurred, demand is being created, production is being increased, and consequently the person or persons who receive the income, they again keep on incurring the expenditure depending upon their marginal propensity to consume. And the total income that is created or generated in the economy will be the sum total of whatever we are getting in the third column. And this is also explained through the fourth round in the cumulative form. And here, in order to get the total increase in income, we have to apply the formula of sum of infinite terms of geometric progression. And this is done in equation number 11.13. Delta A bar plus C into delta A bar plus C square into delta A bar plus C cube into delta A bar. So you can take delta A bar outside bracket, within bracket you will get 1 plus C square plus C cube and so on. Here again I should tell you that C is always less than 1, which is the value of MPC. And the student, you remember in 11th class you have studied the formula for sum of infinite terms of geometric progression, which is given by first term divided by 1 minus common ratio. So the sum of aggregate demand change will be equal to 1 upon 1 minus C. C is the common ratio, multiplied by delta A bar. And this is giving us the total change in income. And if you want to find out the value of multiplier, then by definition it is equal to delta Y divided by delta A bar. So that means change in income divided by change in autonomous expenditure. And this is equal to 1 upon 1 minus C. And C here is equal to marginal propensity to consume. So we can say the formula for multiplier is equal to 1 upon 1 minus marginal propensity to consume. And this multiplier is symbolically expressed in equation number 11.15 by using the symbol alpha, and it is equal to delta Y divided by delta A bar. It is equal to 1 upon 1 minus C, or 1 upon 1 minus marginal propensity to consume. And 1 upon 1 minus marginal propensity to consume is nothing but it is the reciprocal of MPS, or reciprocal of marginal propensity to save, because 1 minus MPC is same as marginal propensity to save, because MPC plus MPS is always equal to 1. Table number 11.2 shows the relation between MPC and MPS as well as multiplier for different values. In the first column you will get the value of MPC, which start from 0 and extend up to 1. 0 is the minimum value, 1 is the maximum value. Corresponding to 0 value of MPC, the value of MPS is equal to 1, and the corresponding to 1 value of MPC, the value of MPS is equal to 0, because sum total is equal to 1. Multiplier has been calculated in the last column as the reciprocal of MPS, or 1 upon 1 minus MPC. So values have been calculated. These are 1 when MPC is 0. So that means when MPC is at its minimum, the minimum value of multiplier will be 1, and that indicates the total income created will just be equal to the expenditure incurred in the first round. The maximum value of multiplier will be infinity. This happens when there is no saving at all. That means every amount that people receive is consumed. And here MPC is equal to 1, and the value of multiplier will be equal to infinity. So we find that MPC can never be 0 or 1 in most of the cases. That means these are only extreme cases. In general situation, the value of MPC lies between 0 and 1. And MPC is highest in the third world countries because of low income. Most of the income that people receive is spent by them. And for most of the economies, it has been found that the value of MPC lies between 0.33 and 0.9. Whatever multiplier that we have studied so far is actually showing the dynamic multiplier. And dynamic multiplier means it explains the cumulative effect of change in investment or autonomous expenditure on the income in different rounds. And this is explained through sequence of events via their effects on consumption expenditure. And if you want to study it again, you can go back to the table in which I explained the same. And this type of multiplier is different from static multiplier. And the static multiplier will mean that we are straight away moving from one equilibrium point to new equilibrium point spontaneously without going through numerous stages or rounds. And we can study the same true diagram, and for which we have to look at figure number 11.4, which has now come before you. The derivation of multiplier to figure number 11.4, wherein we see that original equilibrium point of the economy is E, where original aggregate demand A bar plus Cy intersect the 45-degree line, or you can say aggregate output. When autonomous expenditure increases, aggregate demand curve shifts upward in a parallel manner. The new aggregate demand curve will be AD dash, and it is equal to A dash bar plus Cy. So that means intercept of the aggregate demand curve has been changed from A bar to A dash bar, but there is no change in marginal propensity to consume. That means there is a parallel shift. MPC is actually giving us the slope of the aggregate demand curve, but the value of intercept has increased. And as I told you earlier also, whenever for any given value of marginal propensity to consume small c, for every higher value of intercept on the y-axis A bar, the equilibrium will be attained at a higher level. So this is the reason why new equilibrium point E dash, where new aggregate demand curve intersect the aggregate supply curve or 45-degree line, is corresponding to higher level of output. It is OY dash in comparison to original output level of OY. So when you straight away move from E to E dash, what we get is known as static multiplier. That means in single stage we are moving from one equilibrium point to another equilibrium point, but generally the process is not instant. This process takes place in numerous stages. And how numerous stages actually take place, I've already explained the same when I explained the concept of dynamic multiplier. That means from E point you are firstly moving vertically upward on the new aggregate demand curve, then you are horizontally moving to the 45-degree line by equal distance, because whatever expenditure that is incurred is shown vertically, and whatever income that is created is shown horizontally, and both are equal. So again, in the second round, there will be a movement on the vertical direction and equal movement along horizontal direction. Every movement along vertical direction will show the expenditure for different round, and every corresponding movement on the horizontal direction will show the corresponding income created. And finally, we will be reaching at point E dash through a process that is called as dynamic multiplier. Well, student, you again look at this figure number 11.4, where EP, the horizontal distance, is showing the change in income, delta Y. And the vertical distance is delta A bar. If you compare delta A bar, which is equal to the gap between two aggregate demand curve, you will find that the change in autonomous investment is much less in comparison to the change in income. So delta Y in this diagram is much greater than delta A bar, which is change in investment expenditure. If you take the ratio of the two, what you get is called as multiplier, or to be more precise, investment multiplier. It is given by delta Y upon delta A bar, and the formula is 1 upon 1 minus C. Because I have already told you that delta Y upon delta A is nothing but it is giving us the multiplier value alpha, which is equal to 1 upon 1 minus C, which is equal to investment multiplier. And this is something I have explained about few minutes back through equation number 11.15, wherein I told you that delta Y upon delta A bar is equal to alpha, which is equal to 1 upon 1 minus C. This is investment multiplier. And how do you get it? For this purpose, you may again go back to one equation, wherein I explained to you that delta Y, this is equation number 11.14, delta Y is equal to 1 upon 1 minus C, 1 upon 1 minus C multiplied by delta A bar. So from this equation, you get delta Y upon delta A bar is equal to 1 upon 1 minus C, that is investment multiplier. Well, students, I've told you several times that the last three chapters are very, very important from the examination point of view. I have already covered chapter number 10. 11th chapter is much more important, even more important than the previous one. And still, most important chapter would be the next one. But then next chapter you cannot understand without understanding the present chapter. These concepts of multiplier in 2, 3, 4 sector economy will be used to explain several policy implications and to derive several other multipliers in the next chapter. So I expect that each one of you would revise whatever I have discussed in this chapter. Only then the student will be able to understand the next chapter. As far as the previous chapter is concerned, that is also important, but that is not related with last chapter in a you can say close manner. So you can again look back to figure 11.4, wherein I have written that delta Y, which is shown by vertical distance, is also shown by horizontal distance. Horizontal distance delta Y is same as vertical distance E dash P. Please remember, EP is delta Y, horizontal distance showing change in income. This is equal to E dash P. And this E dash P is equal to 1 upon 1 minus C multiplied by delta A bar, which is equal to delta Y. Plus, do remember that delta A bar is much less in comparison to delta Y. Now another derivation is optional, so I'm skipping this. no question is going to be asked from this portion, which has been deleted from the readings. For the current students, reverse multiplier has also been deleted for the student. It is also optional and it is very much mentioned. This is required for conceptual understanding. But here I would like to tell you the meaning of reverse multiplier. When we use accelerator in the car, you will find that the greater is the force with which we apply accelerator, greater is the distance traveled by the car in the forward direction. And this is how you can understand the multiplier principle from the real life example, that the distance traveled per unit time is greatly increased by applying force on the accelerator. So that means multiplier is actually acting as accelerator. But when we drive the same car and use the reverse gear, and then we apply reverse gear and again we use accelerator, we will find that the car will move and the distance travel is going to be much greater with every additional force applied on the accelerator. So the reverse multiplier conveys the same story, that when we change the expenditure, which may be investment expenditure or autonomous expenditure, in the reverse direction, that means there is a negative change in investment or autonomous expenditure, then also there will be a substantial increase in income in negative sense. Or you can say income will also change multiple times, and it will also be calculated by the same formula 1/1 minus C, but the direction of change of income will be reversed. So that means when we reduce the expenditure, the income also gets reduced by a multiple amount, but the multiplier principle or multiplier formula will remain the same, which you can see. It is given in the book, that is required only for conceptual understanding. That is why I have not explained it in great details, but I have explained the concept which is required to be understood. And in the last, I would tell you there are some brief notes which are given in the page, in the box form, which is before you. Increase in autonomous spending increases the equilibrium level of income. So that means whenever autonomous spending, that is delta A, rises, equilibrium level of income also rises. And this increase in income is multiple of increase in autonomous spending. This is given by multiplier formula. And finally, larger is the value of MPC, larger is going to be the value of multiplier from the relation between consumption and income. This is clear that there is a positive relationship between MPC and multiplier. In one of the table through which I explained the relation between MPC and multiplier, you came to the conclusion that for different values of MPC, we have different values of multiplier, which show a positive or direct relation between them.